The auditorium was bursting with light and applause, cameras flashing like fireworks. The banners on the wall read, "Congratulations, Class of 20 Techs," and my sister, Jessica, stood at the center of it all, draped in her royal blue graduation gown and cap, holding her diploma high for the crowd. She was 22, the family's golden girl, the one they paraded like a trophy. I sat 2 rows from the back, 25 years old and invisible. My son, Ethan, only 6, sat beside me, swinging his legs nervously. He leaned in close and whispered, "Mommy, why don't they clap for you?" His wide brown eyes burned a hole in my chest. "Because they don't see me," I whispered back, squeezing his hand. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." Dad strutted to the podium like it was his coronation. He grabbed the mic with a grin, his suit straining at the buttons, his voice booming over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is my daughter Jessica. This is our pride, our shining diamond." The crowd erupted again. Mom dabbed her eyes with a tissue she didn't need, already crying on cue, making sure everyone saw. My stomach turned, but I stayed seated. I was used to it, years of being called second best or worse, not even being mentioned at all. But then, Dad's eyes swept the crowd and landed on me. I should have looked away, but I didn't. His grin thinned, curdled into something darker. He put the mic down just long enough to march off stage. The crowd murmured in confusion as he stomped down the aisle toward me. "Come here," he hissed, grabbing me by the collar before I could react. "Dad, stop!" I gasped, Ethan crying out beside me, but he yanked me forward. The auditorium lights seared my eyes as he dragged me up the steps, shoving me onto the stage next to Jessica. She stood frozen, holding her diploma awkwardly, her lips twitching into a smug little smirk. Dad snatched the mic again, his hand tight on my collar, forcing me to bend. His voice dropped into a hiss, audible to the front rows but venomous enough to poison the air. "And this," he spat, jerking me forward, "this is the trash." The audience gasped. My knees scraped the stage floor, my face burning hotter than the lights. My son's cries carried across the room, "Mommy!" And then, before anyone could intervene, he kicked me, hard, right in front of hundreds of people. The force knocked me sideways, my palms smacking the polished wood, my head spinning as the microphone screeched with feedback. Mom jumped to her feet in the front row, not to stop him, but to clap, to cheer. "That's right!" she shouted, her laugh high and cruel. "Show them what garbage really looks like." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, some whispering, others pretending not to see. Jessica's smirk widened as she lifted her diploma higher, like my humiliation was her backdrop. I pushed myself up slowly, my throat tight, my chest heaving. My collar hung crooked, my hair falling in my face. I looked out at the sea of strangers, at my son's terrified little face, and then back at my parents. Dad's smug sneer, Mom's twisted grin. Every muscle in me trembled. Not from fear, but from fury. I wanted to scream, to break, to vanish. But I did none of those things. I stood, straight, silent. I adjusted my collar with shaking fingers, lifted my chin, and looked Dad dead in the eye. He froze for a split second, just enough for me to see it, the flicker of unease. The crowd clapped awkwardly as Jessica basked in their praise, but no one was watching her anymore. They were staring at me, at the daughter labeled trash, at the girl humiliated on stage. I walked off, each step measured, Ethan rushing into my arms as I reached the aisle. My parents thought they had finished me. They thought they had silenced me forever. But humiliation doesn't silence, it sharpens. And from that moment, I knew exactly what I'd do. They wanted to drag me across a stage and call me trash? Fine. I'd make sure that one day their names would be dragged through the dirt. Not just in front of strangers, but in front of everyone they needed respect from. The graduation was their pride, and I would turn their pride into their downfall. The days after Jessica's graduation stretched like an endless bruise. My collarbone ached from where Dad had yanked me, my knees still sore from the stage floor. But the deeper wound was the memory, the microphone screeching, Mom's shrill laugh, Dad's voice booming trash, and hundreds of eyes turning toward me like I was an exhibit at the zoo. Everywhere I went in town, I felt whispers chasing me. At the grocery store, 2 women from the audience looked away quickly when I passed, pretending to study a cereal box. At the pharmacy, an older man muttered to his wife, "That's the girl from the graduation." My humiliation had been branded into me, and they had handed me the brand in public. Jessica, of course, flourished. My parents couldn't stop bragging. Our daughter's speech was the highlight, Mom gushed to anyone who would listen, conveniently forgetting the spectacle they created. She was radiant on stage. Meanwhile, Dad doubled down. Every time he passed me in the hallway, he muttered something sharp. "Still trash. Stage floor suits you better than a diploma ever would. Lucky we didn't kick harder." Jessica would just smirk when I walked into the room, her diploma framed on the wall, the gold tassel dangling smugly beside it. "You really stole the show," she teased one evening. "Everyone's talking about how embarrassing you are. You're like background noise turned into a punchline." My son, Ethan, clung tighter to me each night. "Why did Grandpa hurt you?" he whispered once, his small hands holding my face as if he could shield me. I had no answer. Because how do you explain to a 6-year-old that cruelty wasn't an accident in our family? It was tradition? For a while, I drifted in silence, like they expected. But the longer I stayed quiet, the sharper my mind grew. Because humiliation doesn't vanish. It ferments, and once it ferments, it becomes poison. I began to notice things, the cracks in their perfect image. Dad's boss, the one they were desperate to impress, hadn't called in days. I overheard him on the phone, voice low and panicked. "Of course that wasn't us, sir. She's just unstable." He was trying to spin the story, but his words betrayed fear. His career, the thing he worshipped almost as much as Jessica, had trembled the moment he dragged me on stage. Mom's bridge club had grown quieter, too. I caught her wiping down the table alone one Thursday, muttering under her breath, "Busy this week, that's all." But I knew. They didn't want to be associated with her laughter. Even Jessica wasn't untouchable. Her friends teased her behind her back. I heard one at the coffee shop whisper, "She acted like royalty, but her family looked like circus clowns." Jessica came home red-faced that day, slamming her purse on the counter. And me? I fed on it silently. I cooked, I cleaned, I endured their barbs, but every second I was filing away evidence of their hypocrisy. The perfect family mask that shoved down everyone's throats. It was cracking, and I could widen the cracks until the whole thing shattered. One night, as I tucked Ethan into bed, he whispered, "Mommy, are they ever going to say sorry?" I kissed his forehead. "No," I said softly. "They never will, but they'll regret it." And that was the moment the plan solidified. I knew my parents' weakness better than anyone. It wasn't money. They had little to flaunt. It wasn't love. They had none to give. It was pride. Pride in Jessica. Pride in their reputation. Pride in being seen as better than everyone else. They needed to be admired. They needed to be envied. And pride is fragile. I thought of the microphone in Dad's hand, the way his voice carried when he called me trash. I thought of Mom clapping and cheering as if humiliation was sport. They had used the stage to destroy me. So I decided I would take their stage away from them. Not just once, forever. But this time it wouldn't be with screams or pleas. It would be with proof, with spectacle, with the same public humiliation they had forced on me, but worse. I began quietly, almost invisibly, watching, collecting, memorizing the things they said when they thought no one else heard, stashing away their careless cruelty like tinder waiting for a spark. Because if they wanted to show the world that I was trash, then I'd show the world what they really were. And this time, I wouldn't be the one crawling off stage. The night of their downfall came disguised as another celebration. Jessica had been invited to give a short talk at a community recognition event downtown. Nothing huge, but enough for my parents to treat it like the coronation of a queen. They pressed her gown, polished her shoes, and spent the afternoon rehearsing their lines like they were part of the program. Dad paced the living room, chest puffed out. Tonight, They'll see what a real family looks like. None of that stage nonsense from last time. He shot me a glare as if to remind me I was the nonsense. Mom smirked, fastening Jessica's necklace. Smile, sweetheart. This is your spotlight. Don't let trash steal it again. I stayed silent, calm, Ethan's small hand folded in mine. They had no idea that every cruel word, every smirk, every insult had been fuel. They thought I was still the girl on her knees, humiliated at graduation. They didn't realize that humiliation had sharpened me into a weapon. The community hall was filled with rows of chairs, banners, and families sitting proudly for their children. When Jessica's name was called, she strutted on stage, diploma in hand, that polished smile spread across her face. My parents beamed from the front row, their heads high, their bodies practically glowing with pride. Then came the moment. The host handed Jessica the mic. She started her rehearsed lines. I'm so honored. My parents always believed in me. And that was when the screen behind her flickered. The hall murmured. My parents glanced back in confusion. Then the screen lit up with a recording, grainy but clear. Dad's voice first, recorded from that graduation night, sharp and booming. And this is the trash. Gasps rippled across the audience. The clip jumped. Mom's laughter filled the hall, shrill and cruel. That's right. Show them what garbage looks like. Jessica froze mid-sentence, the microphone trembling in her hand. The footage kept rolling, snippets I'd saved on my phone, carefully timed. Dad snarling at me in the kitchen. Stage floor suits you better than a diploma. Mom snapping. You're an eyesore. Be grateful we don't kick you harder. Jessica herself smirking into her phone. Everyone's talking about how embarrassing you are. The room went dead silent. Then came the whispers. Did you hear that? Unbelievable. They said that to their own daughter? Dad shot to his feet, his face purple. Turn that off, he roared, but the hall was already alive with gasps and disgust. Mom lunged for the host, shrieking, That's a lie, it's twisted. But the voices in the audience drowned her out. We heard it ourselves, one man spat. You should be ashamed. Jessica dropped the microphone, her face red, her friends in the back covering their mouths to hide their laughter. Trash, family, someone whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear. And me? I stood calmly at the back with Ethan, his hand in mine, watching them unravel. Dad tried to shout over the chaos, but the microphone squealed and cut out. Mom clawed at Jessica's arm, ordering her to say something, fix it. But Jessica shoved her off, mortified. The host finally grabbed the mic, voice stern. This is not the place for cruelty. This community celebrates pride and respect, not humiliation. Take your family and leave. The words hit like a gavel. My parents, the ones who thrived on applause and envy, were escorted out under a wave of stares and mutters. Jessica trailed behind, clutching her necklace like it might protect her, her perfect image shattered into dust. I walked past them on the way out, Ethan's small voice breaking the silence. Mommy, they're the trash now. I didn't correct him, because he was right. They had dragged me across a stage and called me trash. They had laughed, they had cheered, they had broken me in front of everyone. And now, in front of everyone they wanted to impress, I had fed them their own poison. For once, it wasn't me on my knees. It was them, drowning in their own dirt. And I didn't look back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.